was 17 when it all went wrong. I still remember the date because it was the night before my final math exam. I'd been at my friend Luke's house until almost midnight, trying to cram every formula into my brain. His place was a 40-minute walk from mine if you stuck to the sidewalks, the streetlights guiding you. That night I was exhausted, cold, and carrying a backpack that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I just wanted to get home, dive under my blankets, and pretend the exam didn't exist. Luke was leaning against his doorway, a flashlight in one hand, grin on his face. He shrugged and said I could save 20 minutes by cutting through Merrow Creek woods. Everybody around town warned that those woods were off-limits after dark. Old tales about people vanishing, strange lights floating between trees, whispers that chased hikers off the path. I dismissed it all as local legend. Luke biked through that forest all the time and swore he never saw anything weird. He said maybe I'd spot a deer out there or a raccoon rummaging in the underbrush. No big deal, he said, just bring the flashlight. I stepped into those woods and felt the air change instantly. My breath came out in steamy puffs. My hoodie did nothing to ward off the chill. The trees rose so high they seemed to blot out the sky. Moonlight was nothing but a faint glow barely touching the leaf litter on the ground. I clicked on the flashlight and got a weak beam that shook in my hand for a second before it held steady. I told myself it was fine. It's just dark, I thought. It's just me being jittery after too much coffee and no sleep. The path underfoot was soft with fallen leaves and snapped twigs. My sneakers made a quiet rustling noise that sounded way too loud in the stillness. No animals scurried out. No rustling in the bushes. Nothing. I walked for maybe 10 minutes and realized I hadn't seen the old oak with the carved initials Luke mentioned. I hadn't passed the rusty sign nailed to a post. I just had endless rows of trees all looking the same. My heart started pounding so hard it felt like it might burst through my chest. Then I heard it. Not wind. Not an animal. A soft snap like someone stepping on a brittle branch. Then another, slower this time. Pause. Then two more. Each one closer than the last. My legs froze. My mind raced. I tried to tell myself it was a deer, a raccoon, anything harmless. But the snaps were deliberate, spaced out to mirror someone dragging a foot. A slow, uneven rhythm that sent ice through my veins. I stopped and held the flashlight steady. The beam cut a narrow circle of light. Beyond that was pitch. I whispered Luke's name. No answer. The air seemed to press in on me, every shadow alive. My chest tightened. I rode my arms for courage and took a step back. Another branch snapped. Crack, crack. I swallowed and forced my legs to move forward. Faster. My breaths came in ragged gasps. My heart thrummed so loud I feared it gave away my position. The flashlight flickered out. I dropped it without thinking. Darkness swallowed me whole. Panic flared in my chest. Thoughts tangled in my head. I could not stay here. I had to get out. I pounded through the leaves until I tripped over something that scraped my palms and knees. Pain shot up my arms and legs, but I didn't care. I scrambled, crawled, and got back to my feet. I ran. Leaves slapped my face. Branches snagged my shirt. Every ounce of me screamed to stop, to scream, to turn and face whatever followed. But I just ran. I thought I heard a voice, a low whisper calling my name. I jerked my head side to side, but it was gone. My lungs burned like fire. My chest heaved. The woods seemed never-ending. When I finally slowed to a stagger, I realized I was lost. The path had vanished. I couldn't find any landmark. I couldn't see the flashlight or the moon. Just endless trunks and that whisper in my mind. I pressed my back against a broad tree trunk and slid down to sit on the damp ground. Tears stung my eyes. I hugged my knees like they might keep me from floating away into the darkness. That's when I noticed the light. A faint glow flickering somewhere to my left. It could be my imagination. Could be fireflies. Could be a campfire. I mustered every scrap of courage I had and stood up. I moved toward the light, stumbling over roots, hands outstretched as if I could feel my way. I emerged into a small clearing. A circle of stones held a dying fire. Around it stood 3 figures. I choked on my own breath. They were taller than any person I'd ever seen. Faces so pale they looked like they were carved from bone. Their eyes were empty hollows that stared right through me. Even from the edge of the light I could see their skin stretched too tight over skulls, thin lips peeling back into silent screams. My legs seized. My mouth went dry. They lifted their heads in unison and turned toward me. No sound came from them. No footsteps. But they moved closer, long legs bending at angles that made my stomach twist. The fire cast grotesque shadows across their features, flickering in and out, reaching out as if to pull me toward it. I screamed and bolted back into the trees. Branches tore at my shirt, scratched my arms, but I ignored the pain. I stumbled, fell, and got up again. The whispering followed, my name soft and mocking. I ran until my lungs felt like they would collapse. I ran until I didn't feel real anymore. And then I was on the edge of the woods, barely conscious, head pounding, chest heaving. A truck idled on the road. A man leaned out the window and called to me. I collapsed into the passenger seat and passed out. I woke up in a hospital bed with bandages on my hands and knees. My clothes were torn. The doctor said I probably got lost, had a panic attack, collapsed from exhaustion. They treated my scratches and sent me home. Nobody believed my story about the figures around the fire or the whisper in my ear. Nobody asked why I had deep handprint bruises on my back or why my flashlight was shattered on the ground nearby. It's been months, but I still wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, flashlight beam dancing across my ceiling. I still hear that slow snap of branches and that soft whisper of my name. I still see those hollow faces waiting in the trees. I'll never set foot in those woods again. Ever. And neither should you. I never believed in ghosts. At least, I didn't until this spring. My name is Alex Turner and I work long hours at an IT firm. I live alone in a small apartment in Seattle, and when I want to relax after a long day of screens and code, I usually play music through my nice new wireless headphones. I splurged on a high-end pair of Eargenix PX3 buds last Christmas. Supposedly the best sound on the market. They're comfortable, nearly invisible, and the battery lasts forever. No smartphone bloatware, just a simple Bluetooth connection. One Tuesday evening around 11:30 p.m., I finally wrapped up debugging some JavaScripts and leaned back at my desk. The apartment was quiet except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the wind rattling the window frame. I slid the headphones on and settled down with a beer to watch a movie. About 40 minutes in, I paused the film because something strange happened. I heard a clear, faint voice right in my ear. Alex. It sounded exactly like my girlfriend, Marissa. She had visited over the weekend and accidentally left her headphones behind. I froze. Even though I was wearing my own headphones, I could have sworn I heard Marissa whispering my name. My apartment is small. I turned my head, expecting to see her standing in the doorway with her eyes wide, grinning. But the hallway was empty. The TV was paused on a frozen frame. The hissing white noise of cinema silence filled my ears. I shrugged, thinking maybe I'd imagined it, and resumed the movie. About 5 minutes later, after a scene I barely remember, I heard it again. This time more distinct, with a hint of panic. "Alex, I can't. Alex, help me." The soft voice was panicked, trembling. It sounded exactly like Marissa, same inflection, same accent. I ripped off the headphones, heart thumping. It was completely silent. I even turned them off. Dismissing it as stress-induced auditory hallucinations, I poured the rest of my beer and tried to focus on a comedy show to calm down. 10 minutes later, I tried the movie again. At first nothing happened, but then a whisper at the threshold of hearing. "Alex, I hear something. Come here." My blood ran cold. The voice wasn't Marissa this time. It was higher-pitched, almost childlike, but still female. I bolted upright. "Who's there?" I shouted, but only a dry laugh echoed back. Then silence. The headphones were back on autopilot, playing The Rolling Waves by Wild Coast. My hands were shaking. I fumbled to remove the headphones. They slapped against the desk. I snapped my laptop lid shut. "Fuck this," I muttered, standing up. I paced the kitchen, my eyes darting around the dark corners. My phone showed 11:50 p.m. Maybe I was tired. I texted Marissa, "Hey, you okay? Do you hear my name or something?" No reply. She was away on a work trip. Late-night messages from me weren't unusual, so I assumed she'd read it tomorrow. To ease my mind, I took out the charger and set the headphones on the table, turning them off completely. If the voices were a glitch in the headset, maybe it needed a reset. Deciding to get some air, I unlocked the balcony door. A cold spring wind blew in. The city lights shimmered below. I inhaled deeply, closing my eyes, trying to shake off the dread. But before I could relax, a buzz from my pocket startled me. I fished out my phone. A single text message from an unknown number. I found her. My finger hovered over the reply button. Was I being pranked? But I couldn't recall sharing any pics of Marissa or even that the apartment was mostly dark. And who would message me at this hour? I texted back anyway. "Who is this?" Seconds later, my phone vibrated. New message. "I'll show you." The phone then pinged with a new email alert. I opened the Gmail app. A new unread message from an unknown sender with just one attachment. I hesitated but tapped it. The image was a photo of my living room. The scene, me asleep on the couch, earbuds still on, a half-finished beer on the coffee table. My TV and laptop screens were on, exactly as I'd left them. I jerked awake, falling off the stool I'd been sitting on. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I was sleeping? I would never doze off wearing earphones. People talk through this door all the time, or my laptop's Wi-Fi could disable if it thought I was idle. And even if I did, who took that photo? The room was pitch black to the camera, yet my earbuds were glowing faintly blue. Panic set in and I scrambled for my phone to reply. But all the messages were gone. The text thread had vanished. The email alert had disappeared too. My internet connection was still on. I refreshed the inbox. No new message, no trace of that email. Now convinced something very wrong was happening, I grabbed the headphones and stomped to the bedroom. I stood in the dim room and calmly, or as calmly as I could manage, examined the gear. The PX3 buds had a small indicator light that usually glowed blue when powered on. I clicked the power button. The blue light blinked 3 times and went out. They were off. I even physically tugged them off and set them on the bed. There was no way they could whisper if they were off, right? The silence in the apartment felt oppressive. I texted a friend, Malik, "Dude, super weird. Gonna crash at your place. My place feels creepy." My phone buzzed instantly. "Malik, what the hell happened?" "Me, I'll explain tomorrow. I think someone broke in here." "Malik, you sure? I mean, like I'm up." I paced and caught his late reply before I could send it. "I'm 2 blocks away. You want me there?" I hesitated. I didn't want to draw attention. But now someone had taken my photo while I slept, and then vanished without a trace or sign of break-in. If an intruder was armed enough to open my computer and send fake messages, I'd rather not stay. "Yeah. Bring coffee," I texted back. Malik showed up 15 minutes later, bleary-eyed. I opened the door to see his tall frame in the hallway light. Relief washed over me. "I'm telling you, something is messed up," I hissed as he stepped in. I gave him the rundown, the voice, the text, the photo. Malik's brows knitted. "This sounds like some clown on the internet. Phishing me or something." He dropped his overnight bag by the door. "But you said the thread disappeared?" "Yep. And the email." He frowned. "Did you get my text about your building's security cams? I set them to auto-record last night in response to the noise from your door frame creaking. If something came in," he pulled out his phone. We walked back to the living room. The red LEDs of the smoke detector cast a low glow. Malik picked up where I left off. "Tell me exactly when it sent that photo." "If I open the record from 11:50 p.m. I gave him times and took a seat. He fussed with his phone. A moment later, "Got it." He tapped the screen. We both watched the live feed. "Nothing, wait," he said. On one camera near the couch, the feed flickered. The figure sitting on the couch was me, but I was sleeping. I had crumpled to the side on the love seat, head lolling, clothes slightly disheveled. The camera's timestamp showed 11:48 p.m. Then the timestamp jumped to 11:51. I was gone. But there, crouched on the floor next to the couch, was a black shadow, a shape like a person bending over me. It had no clear outline in the grainy video, only an impression of bulk, an arm descending from above me. Then the frame cut out, static. It switched cameras. "Jesus," Malik whispered. "I think it's..." I leaned forward, pointing at the screen. The timestamp was now 11:55. In the dim kitchen camera, I appeared again. I was standing by the fridge with a glass in my hand, but the figure was also there, half behind me. The shadow was tall, hunched, a towering shape with something in its hands. Then the figure stepped forward. It glimmered for a moment, I saw it, a twisted grin, and lunged forward. I collapsed, sending glass crashing. Malik lunged at the feed, but it flickered to black. He looked pale. "What did I just see?" That was me in the kitchen," I said shakily. "The figure grabbed me from behind, I think. I blacked out." Silence. The camera sequence was harrowing. Malik took off his glasses. "This isn't a prank or glitch. Something real is in your apartment." I felt the blood drain. I bolted from the chair to shut all the cameras off, Malik protested. Cameras off, darkness enveloped us except for the TV's standby light. Malik edged toward me. "Do you think it's the headphones or those messages?" I glanced at the powered-off buds on the nightstand. They were definitely off, the little light not glowing. "I don't know what it is, but it's connected to those headphones. It can talk." It took control of my laptop to send me an email. "It's inside the tech, Alex. It's Everywhere I have a microphone or camera. He nodded slowly. Maybe an AI experiment or something gone wrong. Some hacker messing? No, too coordinated. Your Siri or Alexa doesn't have that kind of reach. His face twisted. Or maybe the story's true. Maybe your new headphones aren't just Bluetooth. Maybe they're haunted. I gave him a horrified stare, but he had a point. The very moment I turned them off and removed them, the voices stopped, until the photo text came. If it was an entity, maybe it used the headset as an entry. Stay here, I said abruptly. Get some sleep if you can. I'll try to call someone, maybe the police or at least someone in IT security. But we both know how that will go. They'll blame software. He shrugged and lay down on the couch with a half-empty bottle of whiskey. Just, if it tries anything, wake me up. All right. Yeah. I sat on the love seat, rubbing my eyes. The apartment was quiet now. Too quiet. I almost hoped I was hallucinating, that somehow this was stress. But I knew better. Around 3 a.m. I drifted off on the couch. The police report would read unknown intruder anyway, so I kept that to myself. Sleep came fitfully, dreamlike snapshots of being held down, a cold breath in my ear. I woke at dawn, slumped over, pillows tangled around me. By morning I was exhausted. Malik was gone when I woke. I left a note about his girlfriend not answering him, I don't have time to explain, and left a breakfast bar and a bottle of water on the table. I tidied up the glass from the kitchen, took a hot shower, audio off, and looked over the still powerless cameras through my phone for one last check. All was silent on the feeds. I needed to be sure this thing couldn't follow me out. I bagged the headphones and laptop, carrying them to the trunk of my car. In the bathroom mirror, I almost dropped them. Behind me, a dark shape loomed. I whipped around. The room was empty. I could still see the vague outline reflected in the mirror. It was tall, crooked, pale mask of a face. In its hands, my phone buzzing with a message. Whose message? I recovered enough to slap it out of its hands. My phone skidded across the tile floor, screen cracked. The mirror snapped back to normal. Nothing behind me. Panting, I grabbed my keys and fumbled for breath. That was definitely not the girl's voice now. This being's voice was older, dry, like a static-laced echo from old radio tapes. I'd already backed out onto the street. I peeled out of the parking lot, accelerated without looking back. I don't know what that thing is, but it knows my name, my home, my stuff. It has my technology now and maybe part of my mind. Tonight I'm in New York, flying out first flight. I booked a last-minute business trip, making up an excuse. Malik hasn't gotten any calls or texts back from me. He'll just think I left town for work. I doubt anyone here has devices connected to mine. I just found an unlocked computer in the office lounge at JFK. I'm saving this document as unnamedpost.txt because who would believe it otherwise? In a few hours I'll board a flight, shoot clear to Los Angeles where the sun actually comes up. I thought this would be like the funny glitch headphones story, but it's not funny. This is posted on /r/nosleep. Well, I'm sorry. I wish it were a prank too. I hear a faint whisper whenever I put on these rented earbuds in the lounge, but maybe that's paranoia. The thing followed me, maybe it can use any microphone. Listen to me, if you use weird tech or someone's creepy messages end up at 3:33 a.m., disconnect everything right away. Don't assume it's a software bug. I'm boarding now. Whatever it is, it's real. I was 10 years old when Grandma came to live with us. It was about 6 months after Granddad passed away, and I guess looking back, she must have been lonely in that big house of theirs, rattling around with only the grief and memories for company. So despite a few protests from Mum, my parents took her in. There were no protests from me. None at all. Grandma was loud and fun, and I loved her. She had an almost limitless supply of boiled sweets, and she'd always slip me a couple whenever she saw me. She was always the first to stick up for me when I got in trouble too. But it was her stories I loved best. Grandma had all kinds of stories. Stories about growing up during World War II, and stories about the things she'd get up to with her friends on the South Coast, after her family had been evacuated. Sad stories, funny stories, adventure stories. But it was her scary stories that were my favorite. Grandma had lots of scary stories. She told me she dabbled in the occult when she was a teenager, trying out Ouija boards with her friends. Tarot cards, fortune-telling. All that stuff. Most of the stories I'd laugh off or forget about not long after she was done telling them, but there were a couple that really did spook me a bit. I was only 10 at the time, you have to understand. And Grandma certainly knew how to bring the stories to life. She'd shut off the lights in my room so only the glow of the night sky shone through the curtains, and she'd shuffle in real close. Close enough so I could see the wrinkles on her face and smell the boiled sweets on her breath. Close enough so her deep blue eyes could stare straight into mine. She must have given me nightmares with a few of those tales, but now, years later, there's only one that I can still remember. Only one that stuck with me. The story about the shower and Mr. Longfingers. Grandma told me about Mr. Longfingers one night after I asked about her baths. Grandma used to love her baths. She'd spend ages in them, light candles and incense, and lie in the tub humming to herself until the water turned cold. It drove my mom crazy. But when I asked her why she loved them so much, she said it was the only place she could relax. It was the only place that was safe for her to relax. You know, people like me who are, well, more sensitive to certain things, we have to have baths, she told me seriously one night, shuffling closer on the bed. I couldn't possibly spend that long in the shower. It'd be far too risky. Grandma stared at me with those blue eyes of hers, unsmiling, and I knew it was time for one of her stories. One of the scary ones. I shivered with pleasure and pulled the covers up to my chin. Why is it risky, Grandma? She half turned to look out the window, watching me from the corner of her eye, pausing for effect. I waited, feeling my heart rate pick up ever so slightly in my chest. Well, she said after a moment, it's only risky if you close your eyes, of course. If you close your eyes for longer than 10 seconds. What do you mean? Why? Well, do you ever play that game in the playground with your friends? The one where someone turns their back, and the others sneak up on them when they're not looking. I nodded, and Grandma nodded back. Exactly. So that's what it's like in the shower when you have your eyes closed. That's what it's like with Mr. Longfingers. A cold itch tickled back. Who's Mr. Longfingers, Grandma? She let out a deep breath, as if she wished she hadn't said anything, turned her head back to face mine. When she next spoke, she'd lowered her voice. No one knows exactly, Grandma whispered. Some think it's a creature that's attracted to the heat and smell we give off in there. Others think it's a demon that finds a way into our realm through the dense steam clouds. No one can say for sure, because the only ones who have actually seen Mr. Longfingers aren't ever going to be able to tell you. I pulled in a breath. Why not? Grandma shuffled closer along the bed and leaned towards me, leaving my question hanging in the air. Don't you worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry your pretty head. As long as you remember the rules, you'll be fine. What rules? Well, when you're in the shower, you try not to close your eyes for too long. 5 seconds is fine, and 10 is just about okay too. But any longer than that. Yeah. Then what? Well, any longer than that and you may just start to feel something in the room with you. Something watching. And if you ever go longer than 15 seconds, that's when you might start to hear a noise too. Hear what? The soft tap 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 of fingers on glass. Fingers drumming against the glass door of the shower. If you do ever hear that noise, God forbid, will you make me a promise? What, Grandma? Promise me you'll never open your eyes. I barely slept that night. Hardly at all. I'd close my eyes and try to relax, but every time I did I'd imagine a face pressed against my bedroom window, staring in at me. And when I did finally get to sleep, I had nightmares. Bad ones. I had them all week, in fact. Dreams about disembodied eyes watching me in the dark, and long fingers reaching out to touch my exposed skin. It wasn't any better when I was awake either. Not really. The shower was the worst. That's when Grandma's story really got to me. I'd never thought about it before, but suddenly I had trouble shutting my eyes in there. I'd be standing beneath the beating water, shampoo running down my face, and as soon as I squinted my eyelids closed I'd hear Grandma's words running through my head. 5 seconds is fine and 10 is just about okay too. But any longer than that. I'd rub my hair fast, feeling the shampoo dripping off my chin, and as soon as I'd counted past 5 seconds I'd feel it. A sort of pressure. Not a feeling of being watched exactly, but something close to that. I'd run my fingers faster and faster through my hair, frantically trying to get the suds out, and the ready blackness behind my closed eyes coupled with the rush of water in my ears would feel like a held breath, like the silence before a scream. The seconds would race through my mind and I'd be so desperate to open my eyes again that I'd sometimes do it before my hair was rinsed fully clean, and my eyes would sting with shampoo. But before I shut them again I'd always be sure to peer out through the steamed glass door of the shower cubicle, just to make sure I was still alone. It wasn't long before Mum realized something was up. She heard me crying out in my sleep one night and came in to comfort me. Asked me what the matter was and it all came out. I told her about Grandma's stories and about Mr. Longfingers. She got this look on her face when I was telling her, like she used to get with me when I'd made her really mad. This wide-eyed, angry look. Only this time she wasn't angry with me. She was angry with Grandma. My parents' room was next to mine, and sometimes if I pressed my ear against the wall, I could hear them talking in there. Soft whispers. That night, though, after Mum was satisfied I wasn't scared anymore and she'd gone back to her room, the whispers weren't soft at all. Oh no. I heard Mum hissing to Dad about Grandma. About the story she'd told me. Mum's voice floated through the wall, sharp and crisp. You know what your fucking mother said to him now, don't you, Simon? Dad's response was an unintelligible mutter. She's told him there's a monster that'll get him if he shuts his eyes in the shower. A monster. The poor kid's been having nightmares about it all week. Seriously, Simon, you'd better say something to her tomorrow morning first thing, or I will. Grandma came to visit me in my room the following night. That time, as she perched on the end of my bed, there were no stories. Nothing like that. Grandma just sat there and stared down at me, her blue eyes wide and sad. The light from the moon outside my window lit up her wrinkled face. You know I'd never let anything bad happen to you, don't you? She said after a moment. I nodded my head. I know, Grandma. You know I wouldn't let you come to any harm? I nodded again. Okay, good. That's good. She looked away from me for a moment out the window. You know, the things I tell you in the evening are meant to help you, sweetheart. They're meant to toughen you up a bit. Protect you. She paused and shook her head. But maybe your mum's right. Maybe I went too far this time. She looked down at me and smiled. But even then, even though I was only 10 years old, I could tell it didn't quite reach her eyes. I'll tell you what, Grandma said. You know what I told you about Mr. Longfingers and the shower? Well, I'm going to make sure you're safe. I'll scare the bastard off, how about that? It won't come back in a hurry if it has to face me. I stared up at Grandma, watching her face glow in the moonlight, watching her smile down at me. I nodded my head once. I was the one who found her. I don't know when exactly it happened, but I guess it was about a week after we had that talk in my room. A week after she told me she wouldn't let me come to any harm. I woke early that morning from a bad dream to a heavy thumping sound. I sat bolt upright in bed. My room was quiet around me, and I couldn't hear anything from the wall that joined my parents' room either. But the house wasn't entirely silent. Floating down the hall, muffled by my closed door, I could hear the sound of rushing water, the noise of the shower. I leapt out of bed and ran down the upstairs hallway, heart already pounding in my chest. As soon as I reached the closed bathroom door, I started banging on it. A deep terror was welling up inside me like cold water from a well, something I couldn't place, and I kept banging and shouting, "Grandma," over and over again, even though she didn't respond. Off to my right, I was dimly aware of voices from my parents' room, the sleepy shuffle of footsteps. But before they had a chance to make it out onto the landing, I'd lifted my hand to test out the door handle, more out of instinct than because I thought it might actually open. But the door wasn't locked. I kept banging with my free hand and it swung suddenly inwards, bringing me face to face with a wall of steam. Heat struck my skin. I squinted my eyes against the damp fog and peered into the bathroom. And before Dad pushed me to one side, before everything around me descended into shouting and tears and chaos, I saw her. I saw Grandma. She was lying naked on the floor in the shower cubicle, the water beating down around her, blue eyes bulging from her face. One hand was curled against her chest like a dead bird, while the other trailed against the glass of the shower cubicle, the flailing finger marks she'd carved through the steam still clear and fresh. It was a heart attack that killed her. That's what my dad told me. He said Grandma was old and the thing had struck her quickly and suddenly. She would have died fast and without pain, Dad said. She wouldn't have suffered. I knew better though. Even as a 10-year-old kid, I knew better. And years later, writing this as an adult, I still know better. I also know my wife and kids resent me for refusing to have a shower in the house, for insisting everyone take baths. They pretend it's okay and they humor me, but I can tell they don't really understand it. Not at all. My wife thinks she does. She thinks I still carry the trauma of seeing my grandmother dying in front of me when I was little. I guess she's right in a way. But she doesn't know the full truth. Nobody does. And no one would believe me even if I told them. No one would believe me if I said the reason I don't take showers, the reason I haven't had one since I was 10 years old, isn't because I'm scarred from the sight of a dead body. It's because all those years ago, when I crept back into the still hot bathroom after the paramedics had taken Grandma's body downstairs, I made sure to check the marks her fingers had carved through the steamed glass of the shower cubicle.